Hello and welcome to the first video on our new channel, Mosaic Voyage. We are a family of four, Brendan, Rachel, Evan, and Callie, who decided to sail up, buy a 40-foot sailboat, and set off to explore beyond our old horizons aboard SV Mosaic. You join us in early May 2023 as we are hauling Mosaic out of the water and preparing her to spend the summer alone on the Hard in Guaymas, Sonora. There were several reasons we decided to do this, including the fact that our 6-month visa was about to expire, our water maker had died again, and we were really just feeling ready for a break from boat life. After a few nights exploring options on Google Flights and quickly researching its destination, we had a plan. We were going to fly to Colombia for June, July, and August. This was an entirely new country for our family, but we were excited for the opportunity to explore this vibrant and amazing place. So we bought our tickets, packed our bags, made the 2-hour trip to Hermosillo, and hopped on a plane to Medellín. We landed in Medellín well after midnight, stayed in a nearby hotel, and headed into the city the next morning. When we woke up, we discovered that our hotel was surrounded by some of the most vibrant and beautiful countryside we had ever seen. After an amazing continental breakfast, we called for an Uber and headed for our home for the next month. We had rented an Airbnb in the town of Itagüí, a neighborhood on the southern end of the Medellín metro area. The ride to Medellín was filled with trying to soak in the amazing plants and animals, gawking at the 5.1-mile Tunnel de Oriente, and just enjoying the sights and sounds of a brand new country. During our time in Medellín, we experienced new foods, explored the city, and enjoyed many events and attractions that this amazing Colombian city has to offer. Here are the highlights for a traveling family. Early during our time in Medellín, we spent a day at Parque Explora, Medellín's interactive science museum and aquarium. It opened in 2007 and was part of the major urban development projects by former Mayor Sergio Farrado. The other projects include the beautiful Jardín Botánico and Medellín's amazing cable car network. Parque Explora is a mix of indoor and outdoor exhibits, with the outdoor exhibits consisting of interactive demonstrations of physics and some interesting and informative sculptures of dinosaurs. The indoor exhibits are divided into 4 separate halls, each with a different theme. These are Mind, Time, Physics, and Live. Each hall has many different activities and displays to explore its particular theme. The kids especially enjoyed the outdoor exhibits exploring different elements of physics. The ones allowing them to experiment with centrifugal force was a big hit, as were the water cannons. Once the kids were done with the outdoor exhibits, we headed up to the 2nd floor to see what else Parque Explora had to offer. This is where the dinosaur sculptures reside. They are quite interesting and informative, and are set against the beautiful backdrop of the red brick of the Medellín construction and the verdant green of the mountain slopes. Then it was time to explore the indoor areas. There are dozens of exhibits spread between 4 themed halls, each offering different ways to experiment and explore its own particular subject. The kids really enjoyed the spinning tunnel attraction, asking to go through again and again. However, twice was enough vertigo for us adults. We particularly enjoyed the Mind-themed hall, as it was full of fun and interactive exhibits and games that demonstrated how your brain works and how to trick it. A close second was the Live Hall with its history of performance arts of Colombia and exhibits showing the technology behind plays, news programs, live sports, and TV. In addition to the indoor and outdoor exhibits, there is also an extensive aquarium with a number of tanks displaying fish from various regions within Colombia. It was already the end of the day and we had to rush through the aquarium pretty quickly, but we would go back to see more if we could. Parque Explora turned out to be an amazing place, and is a must-see if you are traveling Medellín with kids. Next is the trip we took up to Parque Arví. Parque Arví is a 39,500-acre ecological and archaeological park located in the mountains above Medellín, and was easily our favorite activity from our time here. Although to be frank, the park itself, while amazing, was not what we enjoyed so much. Let me explain. To get from our Airbnb in Itagüí to Parque Arví required a bit of a journey. We took an Uber, a metro train, and 2 separate cable cars to reach our final destination. The ride on the metro train is interesting and worth doing in its own right. It is also the most immaculately clean public transport I have ever experienced. But the real attraction is the cable cars that take you from the train line on the valley floor to the high plateau of Parque Arví. All told, you gain around 2,000 feet in elevation, and the views are varied and breathtaking. At the bottom, you skim just over the tops of the red brick homes and narrow winding streets, allowing brief, intimate glimpses of people's lives as you fly overhead. Later, as you gain some altitude, the entirety of the valley opens up beneath you, providing panoramic views of the city sprawling across the valley floor and climbing up the steep valley walls. Finally, as you crest the ridge and reach the relative flatness of the plateau, you are treated to a primeval view of towering jungle canopies, bright tropic birds, and occasional glimpses of the shadowy jungle floor below. Once you reach the top of the cable car line, you are deposited in the welcome center of the park. This is where you can book hikes and excursions, get a map, or just enjoy the local market that is there selling snacks, meals, drinks, and local crafts. The park itself is massive and includes over 30 miles of hikes, museums, a butterfly enclosure, and much more. All of the many activities and points of interest are spread throughout the park and require using one of the multiple bus routes to get around. We had not done enough research ahead of time and elected to just explore a bit by foot before getting back on the cable car to enjoy our ride back down to Medellín. All in all, the cable car ride to and from Parque Arví was the single best adventure of our time in Medellín and is an absolute must-do for anybody visiting the city. Our next place was not in Medellín at all, but is a popular short trip from Medellín. It is the small lakeside town of Guatepe. In order to get to Guatepe, we had to take a bus from the station in the north of Medellín. When we planned this trip, we did not realize that we were traveling on an extremely busy holiday weekend. When we arrived at the bus station, we quickly figured this out, as the lines for the ticket counters were so long, they hit the back wall and then mixed together. This made it extremely difficult to determine which line was for which counter, and only the help of the extremely friendly locals allowed us to get to the proper counter on our first try. Guatepe is a charming town known for its zócalos, bright painted details in the lower third of almost every house and building, water sports, and El Peñón, the monolithic rock situated just outside of town. Our first afternoon in Guatepe we spent checking into our hotel and exploring the town. The town itself is a riot of color, with every building either painted in bright colors, covered in ornate zócalos, or both. Eventually we found ourselves in the town square, a lively public space with a beautiful fountain. Like every town we visited in Colombia, this square was surrounded by bustling restaurants, bars, and hotels, all presided over by an ornate church. We then worked our way down to the waterfront to watch the sunset before turning in for the night. The next morning we were up early to make the most of our day before heading back to Medellín. On our way into town, we were passed by a local gentleman leading a string of horses. Our daughter Callie is obsessed with horses, so we spent a few minutes watching them and enjoying their antics. Once we reached town, we needed to check one of the must-see areas of Guatepe off our list, which was Plazoleta de los Zócalos, which is a pedestrian street in the heart of town showcasing the Zócalos for which Guatepe is known. The street is lined with shops selling artisan crafts, souvenirs, and most importantly, Zoca rolls. These are a cannot miss here in Guatepe and are a delicious cinnamon roll covered in vanilla ice cream and whatever topping you want. After finishing our Zoga rolls and spending a little more time exploring the town, it was time to catch our bus and head back to Medellín. One of the last things we did before leaving Medellín was spend an afternoon at Jardín Botánico de Medellín. And we are glad we did. The stunning beauty of these gardens and the contagious enthusiasm of the people of Medellín for this amazing place blew us away. The gardens are situated right in the heart of Medellín, just across the street from Parque Explora and the planetarium. They are surrounded by some of the densest urban environment in the city. However, it is almost magical how quickly the noise and frenetic energy of the city fall away as you enter the gardens. This 35-acre garden is home to over 1,000 different species of plants, as well as many large iguanas, tropical birds, fish, and turtles. It's also a great place to find some of the fascinating insects native to Colombia, and this little caterpillar caught our attention as we were walking the many trails of the park. The gardens are extremely popular with the people of Medellín. As the day goes on, the grassy areas become crowded with people picnicking, practicing yoga, playing instruments, taking photos, or just enjoying the slice of nature in the middle of a massive city. Located inside the gardens is La Casa de Mariposas, or the Butterfly House. Seeing this attraction was a big priority for us, particularly for Callie. We initially worried we were not going to be able to enter as we could not figure out how to buy tickets. However, after some searching around, we realized that the tickets were sold by the ice cream stand near the Butterfly House. Once we had the tickets in hand, we were allowed into the Butterfly House for a 20-minute window, with a guide to provide information about the many different species of butterflies and the work they do hatching and caring for them. After she had given her short presentation and warned us to walk slowly and look before setting our feet down, we were allowed to wander around and see all the different species of butterflies. We spent the time excitedly pointing out each new butterfly to each other, amazed by the diversity and the fact that each one seemed somehow more colorful and vibrant than the last. The 20 minutes flew by, and before we knew it, the guide was rounding us up and ushering us out of the enclosure so that the next group could have their turn. Overall, La Casa de Mariposas was the highlight of our time in the botanical gardens. We spent the rest of the afternoon walking the trails, exploring all the different gardens and areas, and enjoying watching the large iguanas as they climbed and moved around the park. However, pretty soon our time at the park, like our time in Medellín, was coming to a close. If you have watched all the way through, I have to thank you. This is our first video and the learning curve has already been very steep. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like or subscribe, and if you have any advice or suggestions, please leave them in the comments. I can use all the help I can get. Next time we will pick up as we leave Medellín and embark on one of the most beautiful drives we have ever experienced, on our way to spend a month in Salento. Thanks again, and see you next time.